So I'm here to talk to you about the challenges I faced while working for companies that ultimately reached the status of unicorn. So a little bit about me. I'm Loick Le Digabel. I'm coming from France. I'm currently a senior staff engineer and front-end chapter lead at Backmarket, which is a French unicorn. I also used to work for another French unicorn, BlaBlaCar, and also for the French scale-up Dailymotion. So first of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of context of what I consider being a startup and what I consider being a unicorn. So a startup to me is an early stage company. It's early stage for pretty much everything here. So people are even doing sometimes several jobs at once. There is not a lot of money due to low or no fundings at all to invest into people, into tooling or user acquisition. The main goal for the startup is actually to find the right market fit. And the company is likely to pivot a lot until it does. For the unicorns, it's a bit different. There are specialized people in their job everywhere. The product is working, it's on production, the value has been proven, and now it's time to expand. So it could be internationalization, but also diversification. So creating new products, for example, within the company. But yeah, don't worry, we are a tech conference, I know, so I'm going to talk about tech. So what's the impact on tech here? So the tech in startup, what's important, remember, no, you don't. To find the right market fit. So the timing here is critical. The time to market is critical. Since it's expected to have a lot of iterations, coding quick and dirty things is a common thing. It's a reality in startups, but it's fine. Startups also look for short-term solutions over the problem, but this is by design. It's time to prove the relevancy of the project, of the product, and willing to do everything perfectly from the very beginning would be actually a mistake here. It would even threaten the short-term growth of the startup. For the unicorn, the automation is the way here. It's important to factorize, to standardize, and I'm not only talking about code, also processes, organization, in order to scale properly. The unicorns don't expect to double the size of the teams when they open a new market, for example, or, for example, to test manually every feature before deploying. So the companies, being in the state of the unicorn, always have to have a tech vision, a marketing vision, business vision, anyway, clearly a vision. It needs to be defined, even though the company might never reach it in reality. But it gives some kind of North Star, a common direction to give to align everyone. And last but not least, we usually have to deal with legacy when we are in a unicorn context. Usually, this is a legacy coming from the startup. Whoa. So the question is, how do we scale properly from a startup into a unicorn? A little disclaimer here, there is no playbook. If I had the solution, it would be too easy. But I can talk to you about some situations we faced at Backmarket. So what is Backmarket? So Backmarket, for those who don't know us, Backmarket is a marketplace of selling refurbished products. It could be from smartphones to even fridges, for example. The marketplace is available roughly everywhere in Europe, mainly in Europe, I mean, but also in the US and Japan. So we are in a kind of classic marketplace situation where we have the sellers on one side, so including the suppliers, and on the other side, the customers, maybe you. So the company grew a lot during the past few years. We reached recently 700 employees. We doubled every year. And regarding the front-end engineering, because that's what we're interested in here, so we are currently 32 front-end engineers dispatched in 11 squads. So this is the Backmarket tech stack. I won't go further into the explanation, don't worry. But long story short, as you can imagine, we are using Vue.js and Next. But I'm sorry, I won't dig too much into our front-end architecture today. But here, I'm mainly going to talk about the impacts of scaling on the front-end here. But as you can imagine, the infrastructure is big. There are impacts everywhere. So it won't be exhaustive. So the challenges we have at Backmarket, for example, is mainly the hypergrowth. So this is growing super fast, and the velocity is quite important. The business is flourishing and the opportunities are tremendous. We are selling, so for example, smartphones. We are repairing smartphones and buying the old smartphones you might all have when you buy a new one. The teams are growing a lot and the demand in terms of feature is growing accordingly. And lastly, the quality is super important as well for us because we don't want to choose between quality or velocity. And this is the biggest factor of growth for us. Like any e-commerce or marketplace, I guess, the trust that the consumer could have in the product is the biggest topic to tackle. So here I'm going to go through 4 situations we had, I've personally lived at Back Market to illustrate the scaling and some scaling challenges I've had along the way. And for each situation, I will give you one key takeaway because I know that you've seen a lot of slides and a lot of presentations today. So if you had to remember a few slides from my presentations, this would be the 4. So first one, define your priorities and choose your battles. You cannot be everywhere at once. It's important to audit. It could be the code, it could be the processes, the organization. It's important to talk to people and not only to tech people, to understand what's going on and what their problems, what their issues, and where they are heading to. And consider the context. From one company or one moment to another, it wouldn't be the same solution. And to that, you need to be data-driven, to push for your solutions or to understand what would be the best solution for your scenario. Let me give you an example for that. Black Fridays. So if you're working in the e-commerce business, this is something you might know, but when I joined Back Market 3 years ago, I was not really used to it. And I had the chance to live my first Black Friday, which was a big moment for a website like us. So the expectations were great, but to be honest, we feared that the platform might not be able to support the spikes of traffic we were expecting, especially from a database standpoint, but still. We needed to act in order to relieve the pressure as much as possible from the database. And yes, even as front-end engineers, we can act on this. So, context, remember? Short-term solutions here. We had few weeks we needed to act in order to be sure that it would still work. So, there are several quick wins that we have found. It could be removing unnecessary endpoints. If we don't call the endpoints, we relieve a little bit the database. Moving to statics, for example. We added some cache. We removed some even useless properties from endpoints in order to avoid complicated SQL queries. And also, so this is how we optimize it. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with the tiering system, but globally, the idea is to define the most critical features of your business, and that should never go down. So, for example, for us, we always need to have the customers being able to log in, to add the products to cart, to go through the funnel payment. It should always work at any cost. So when we are in a Black Friday situation and we don't know if it's going to work, so we work with the tiering, and with that, we add some kill switches on the features that are not that critical. That way, if we struggle too much, we can remove some features on production via a feature flag. So kill switch is basically a feature flag to activate or deactivate on production on demand the features. Okay, so that's great, but we don't want to leave that every year. So we needed also to plan for long-term solutions. So what's great with the squad organization we have at Back Market is that the tiering system is related to features, and features are owned by squads. So it's easy to find the right ownership and to work on the features all day long, not only being scary a few weeks before the Black Friday. So we worked on this, and the QoS, so the quality of service, helped a lot in order to put some KPIs, remember, data-driven, in order to know what kind of criteria we were expecting for each services, each applications, each features. And lastly, the goal was to be business as usual. To be honest, we are close to it right now. We even call it normal Friday now at Back Market, which is great. So second example now, second situation I've lived. The business is evolving a lot. During the big phases of scaling, the business is evolving, and we need to anticipate it as much as possible. So this is my second takeaway here. You need to be extra careful of what the business might need or how your product might evolve. You won't get everything, obviously, but The problem here is that the product and the business is built iteratively, which is good. Again, we don't want to enter in a 9-month project and find out that it's not working. So we iterate on it, it's fine. However, the architectural decisions, the tech decisions, cannot be taken quarter by quarter. So we need to know in advance the implications and the decisions, the tech decisions we will take, how it's going to have, what impact it's going to have. The business and product won't tell you everything, so you need to ask. You need to try to understand as much as possible to envision the future of it. Again, an example. So this is the domain we have at Backmarket, so the French domain. One decision that has been taken far ago was to keep the extension here, so the .fr, and to deduce some values from it. So first of all, the country, so we are in France. If we are on .fr, we speak French, we pay in euro, and we are in basically the Central European time zone. That's fine. But here, it could be problematic, and I will show you why, to have one string value to define many, many things in reality. So for the country, it's fine, and the country is mainly used to enable or disable some features. If my feature is available in France but not in Slovakia, for example, this is where we base our rules on. But for example, for languages, how can we support several languages? We have the situation in Belgium, and we wanted to open, for example, Canada, which is critical because we need to support English and French there. So this is even product blocker for us during the scaling, obviously. The currency. What if we wanted to display the prices in another currency? Or if I wanted to pay even in another currency? Or what if, now that crypto are apparently a thing, what if I wanted to be able to pay in a cryptocurrency? How do I do that? Right now, we can't. And lastly, time zones, easy one. So for France, it's easy. For US, well, less simple. So the thing here is that we can't have one single value meaning everything. It looks done like this. We do this every day on the code directly, but on architectural decisions, this is the same rule. So the definition of a market will highly depend on your business. So I won't tell you what to do for your product. It highly depends on your situation. But here is what we decided to do at Backmarket. So first of all, we start with the business, the product, the tech people, in order to define what is exactly a market at Backmarket. So first of all, we have an identifier, which is a country. Then we want to support several languages, several currencies, and for us, it could be payment methods, shipping methods, etc. So that's great. We have now a specification, a direction to take, but how can we apply it? So let's go back to the URL. So this is what we still have. Again, country is the one, we keep it, it's fine. No real issue here. For the language, at least on the B2C, so for the customers, we decided to add the local into the path. Why we decided to add that? First of all, it's flexible, we can change it. But also, it allows us to tell the Google or other search engines that we have the same content, but in a different language. So we have an SEO constraint here, which we don't have on the merchant side. Because as a merchant, I need to be logged in. No SEO, we don't care. That's fine. And we can be based on user preferences. For the currency, it could be provided by the APIs, along with any prices, and driven like this. And for the time zone, I won't go further into this, but it's currently detected on Nginx. By the way, we are using time zones, for example, for shipping or these kind of things. So now I'm going to dig into organizational situations I faced, and this takeaway could be super simple, but actually it's relevant, trust me. You need to adapt your organization every time. For the startups, it's super easy. Usually, we have an idea, we code it, we have the feedback live on production, we iterate, sometimes even several times during the day. That's great. Then we grow. And like many other companies, like for example at Backmarket, we decided to use Scrum, so the Spotify model. And first of all, just like every organization, there is no such thing as a perfect organization. It highly depends on your teams and on your needs, but it will have its benefits and its flaws sometimes. So here, for example, with this model, it's great within the squads. Within your squad, you have the product, the tech people, the designers, backend, frontend, etc. Everyone is aligned around the same KPIs. That's great. And what's important to see here is that basically what this model is doing is that it's trying to reproduce the context of the previous one, which is not working, the startup. The problem is not here. The problem is here. The difficulty in this kind of on this kind of organization is that it's growing a lot, and within the squad it's great, but working transversally, trying to align everyone, it's basically a nightmare. Especially for us on our front-end skill, instead of having every engineer in the same team as a component team, everyone is dispatched everywhere. So to align everyone, it's becoming complicating. And again, it's great for the project, but not so great for the tech alignment. Because on the startup, every engineer has the overview of the product, of their feature, but the whole application. Here, the engineers have the overview of their scope, not the whole application. So we need alignment. And that's why companies like Backmarket introduced the roles of chapter lead. So I don't know if you're aware of it, but so here we have this role at Backmarket, and this is a role I have right now. But to simplify, this role is being in charge of building and maintaining the front-end vision. So we even have a backlog and a direction we want to head to. And we are stakeholders for the squads here. On the other hand, the engineers still have big ownership and big autonomy because they are basically the leads and the technical experts of their scope. And also they are the main contributors, which the chapters are not. The jobs of the engineers are basically growing and scaling along with the company, along with all of the companies. And this is all we decided to adapt so far, but it's likely even to change again in the future. Finally, the shortcuts. Everyone takes shortcuts all the time, and I wanted to remind this, so this is the final takeaway of my presentation. Hacking is not necessarily a bad thing. Hacking is what? Hacking is just taking a shortcut. And usually when you take a shortcut, you know where you're going to, right? The problem when we talk about hacks in a very bad way is that we hack and we don't know where we're going to. So we end up with something which is unmaintainable. So on the tech, it's the same thing. As long as we plan things, as long as we have a vision and we know where we are going to, hacking is not a problem, as long as we control it and we control the impact. So yes, scaling is not easy, and it's mainly a matter of hacks. You will hack all the time, again, because of the time to market usually, and it's up to you to accept or not, and to challenge the product and the business to do the right ones. This is something we did, for example, at Backmarket. So yes, if we're not in the US, we are probably in Europe. So no. The else condition here clearly shows that the lack of anticipation of the opening of Asian markets outside of Europe. I mean, so it's normal to make compromises. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying that it wasn't probably not anticipated enough, and we didn't really expect to end up with something like this and being this huge in the code bases. It took us months to factorize this. So the cost of this kind of decision could be huge on the long term, while it's super easy to add at the beginning. Okay, so to conclude my presentation, I will just remind you the 4 takeaways. So define your priorities, choose your battles, you can be everywhere. Be careful of what the business, the product demands, and where it's going to. Adapt your organization all the time. It's not a bad thing to switch from an organization to another every 6 months, actually. And you can take shortcuts. Just control it. Thank you. We are hiring a lot at Backmarket. Just like I said, we are doubling the sizes of the team every year. So if you want to join us, check out this page. Thank you.